what happens when all of you guys get together in Silicon Valley and make me live to 150? Because that's all you guys are talking about these days. I'm sorry I say you guys. I know you're in Austin now.
Yeah.
But what happens now that I mean, if that's a reality, where now I've got a lot more time? Is there going to be another book you're going to write in 20 years that talks about what happens when we're 120 to 180?
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. As Steve Jobs said, late in his life, he said, paraphrasing, dying creates quite an organizing principle for living. And there's an idea that there are stages in life. What's happened, frankly, back in the last 120 years is we have added 35 years at this point of longevity to people's lives in a very short time. And it's really confused people. It's why midlife as an era is like such a new phenomenon. I think if we get to a place where we have that kind of longevity into the future, the idea of midlife wisdom schools, or the idea of how do people continue to graduate into this new way of thinking about being curious, is going to be really essential, because it just means that you have to constantly be open to thinking and learning in a new way.
Yeah.
I do think that there's an element of, you can keep your body alive, but if you actually you don't have money to pay for the longevity we're getting, then and you don't feel relevant any longer, that is a problem.
Yeah, people talk a lot about longevity. I had a doctor on recently, and he uses the term health span as opposed to lifespan. So, okay, you want to live to 150, but
Right.
are you doing something from 100 to 150? Or are
Yeah.
you just kind of in a bed?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's going to be interesting. But yeah, imagine, because we used to think, you go to elementary school, junior high, college, and then good luck.
Yeah.
But maybe we start looking at it, and then when you're 45, you go to the Elder Academy, and then maybe when you're 65, you go to this, and it's this whole process.
So the Modern Elder Academy is an outgrowth of my experience at Airbnb. So at Airbnb, I by circumstance found myself to be the elder amongst all these younger people, but I didn't really have much history to know, like, how do you cultivate being an elder? What I started to learn as I was interviewing people for my book, Wisdom at Work, was, gosh, people don't know how to move into the midlife period. They're not very good at mining their mastery for what they've learned along the way, or cultivating their wisdom, or then repurposing it. And there's the ability to shift your mindset around aging. So long story short is I created a beta test, and we had 13 weeks of programs, 13 cohorts of programs at a 3.5-acre campus on the beach, an hour north of Cabo San Lucas in Mexico, in southern Baja. And what we found was that the idea of people, wisdom is not like physics. It's not something you teach, it's something you share. And when you have 18 people in a room, average age 52, which is our program is about average age 52, and we are creating the conditions for people to share their wisdom and actually explore more deeply what it is they've actually learned and what they want to do with it moving forward. You have 1,000 years of wisdom in the room, and you create the environment where people start to imagine how they can live their life differently. And so we moved from the beta period in which, people were like, the number one thing we learned from the beta period is people wanted an alumni association. So that's a sign that they really liked it. And the groups that actually, the cohorts, had weekly Zoom calls that continued far into the future. So we opened to the public the end of last year, and we had our first academic year. And it was very successful. We've now had 500 people from 17 countries come to the program. We use NPS, Net Promoter Score, as our benchmark, which basically is it's a customer satisfaction metric, and it's 99th percentile for education and hospitality. So people are enjoying themselves.
And they physically go there.
They physically go there, and you're there for a week. So it's a Sunday to a Sunday program. And a lot of the learning is experiential with each other, and using nature as a teacher as well. Like let me use an example. One example would be mentoring. So mentoring, like, what's an element of mentoring? Well, an element of mentoring is actually having presence. The absence of presence is absence. The opposite of presence is absence. We're familiar with people who are absent when they've got their phone in front of their face when they're talking to you. That is very often what we see today. And so presence is a really important thing to figure out how to cultivate. So we do this exercise where we go down the beach and there's a bunch of rocks at one end of the beach. And we actually teach people the fine art of rock balancing. So where you take a rock that's smaller than the big rock it's on, it may be it may have like almost a V to it. So you can't imagine how you would ever be able to balance this rock on the big rock below it. And the way you balance a rock, if you watch a YouTube video on this, is you say, it's very much about getting present with the rock, learning to actually adjust the rock. So you're actually creating a little bit of a divot in the base of the rock. And even if it has a small base and it's like vertical, like this, it can stand up. And what it is about is that presence, adjusting it to a divot, hearing the click, and then taking your hands away. This is what I call mentoring stones. So the mentoring of people, presence, helping to adjust them, feeling the divot, feeling that they actually can stand up on their own, and taking your hands away. So that's a classic, not classic because it's something we created in terms of a metaphor for that people can understand around leadership and mentorship, but it's a classic way of thinking about nature and how nature can be a teacher. So we use nature as a teacher throughout the week. We use each other as teachers. The arc of learning is based upon my book, Wisdom at Work. So there are 4 basic themes in the book, or sort of lessons. It's to evolve, which we've talked a lot about today, which is like, what are you going to shed? What are you going to let edit? It's to learn. We've talked about that a lot today. Those first 2 are hard. Evolving means getting rid of what we've been in some ways, some of what we've been. Learn means being a beginner's mindset and having that growth mindset. Then it's collaborate. One of the great advantages of being an older person is you get better at collaboration. Lots of evidence of that. And then there's counsel, and that's the 4th one. So the week is that theme or that arc. Interestingly, for people, is like counsel. The idea of being an advisor, a counselor, a mentor is what happens last. And many people I know who try to operate from that place of being an older advisor and are doing it as the priest or the parent, go straight to step 4. And you can try to do that, but generally speaking, if you do the first 3 steps first, step 4 is easy. And I had over 100 mentees at Airbnb and still have many. Because if you do those first 3 steps, you become a magnet.